Hi, everyone, and welcome to Good News in Parks, where we discuss current events, challenges, and good news happening in parks and park departments with the people who know it best, some of our frontline park and recreation leaders. We're excited to have you join us today. I'm Anne-Marie Spencer, and together with my co-host Jody Adams, we'll spend the next hour and 15 minutes with three park professionals who will connect with us, with each other, and with you. We'll ask them critical questions about ongoing services. We'll ask questions of you. We'll recognize some people making a difference on the front line. And finally, we'll take some time for you to ask our panel some questions. So please use that question and answer box in the Zoom control panel throughout the show to enter those questions for us. At Game Time and Play Core, we are seeing good news happening in parks everywhere. And Jody, I cannot wait for you to introduce our awesome panel and to share some pretty amazing breaking news as well. Let's do this.
Let's move on. Let me introduce our panelists. Brian Albright. Brian is the director of San Diego County, California Parks and Recreation. He's also a fellow member of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administrators. He also is a past president of the Administrative Park and Recreation section of NRPA, which is now the Leadership Development Area. And then also, Brian has been a gold medal awards judge for many years. So again, Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jody.
Mike Klitzing. Here is Executive Director, CEO of Carmel, Indiana, Parks and Recreation. He is a fellow member of the American Academy of Park and Recreation Administrators. He's also Vice Chair of CAPRA, which is, of course, our accreditation for our field. He also was selected the National Distinguished Professional by NRPA in 2018. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks a lot, Jody. Glad to be here.
Pam Gery. Pam is Director of Darien, Connecticut, Parks and Recreation Department. During her professional career in Connecticut, she has been known as the leader who builds success through the community. Whether it's building the renowned Potato Corn Festival in North Bradford or organizing the famous Weed Beach, say this fast, Weed Beach Festival in Darien. Also, Pam has now brought her national and leadership skills to NRPA. She is the current chair of the NRPA Leadership Development Network of over 500 field professionals. Pam, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You bet. And now I'd like to move into something very special. Again, many of these questions we have crafted off of some of Kevin Roth's tremendous research at NRPA. But let me just share with you the big news that, of course, you saw on the NRPA feed and what's coming out. We have had, for the first time, the passage of full appropriations of the Great Americans Outdoors Act. This is so profound. Over 55 years of work by leader advocates throughout our country have been fighting for full appropriations of our Land and Water Conservation Fund. It has now happened. It is on the way. Congress has passed it by the Senate, by the House, and it is on its way to the president's desk. This is so major, yes, major, because that will appropriate $900 million for us to go forward for helping our local, state parks and national at every level of park systems throughout this country for infrastructure development and obviously with the backload of our maintenance throughout our country. What is key is 42,000 projects have been actually developed through the Land and Water Conservation Fund since 1965. So again, congratulations to everyone that's been on this show already. Today's guest, we've all been fighting for this for over 55 years. Great news. Let's move on to question number one. Yes, celebration. All right, question number one, panelists, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Brian. Parks and recreation departments throughout this country are in the midst of offering essential services, not only with the reopening, but some of the reclosing that is going on within your communities during this pandemic. As of this moment, today, what are those essential services that you're actually offering throughout your department and for your communities? Brian?
Well, let me first say hello to everybody who's out there. Good afternoon to the folks on the east side of the country. Good morning to the folks here on the west. It's a great question, Jody, and I'll tell you, it's really caused us to re-examine our definition of what is essential within our department. And I would say we're looking at it now as every service that we can legally offer is essential. And the reason I say that is because when you look at the local statistics here, like coming from the DA's office about domestic violence, substantial increases, right? You look at the number of calls, you know, for the mental health hotline and the drug addiction hotline, all of that has gone up significantly in this region since March 1. And it's because people are, you know, the public health pandemic has caused stress, and we firmly believe that people need to get outdoors and use the parks. And so we have, the way we have crafted our reopening plan is we have gone all the way to the height of what the state public health order allows. Not all of the cities have done that. And now in California, we're in the midst of sort of a reclosing, right? Because some of the opening of the economy caused the numbers to jump again. There's pretty strict rules about how many days we have to be under 100 new cases before we'll have the full capacity to open everything. But here we have all of the outdoor facilities, with the exception of playgrounds, are open. We're encouraging people to follow the protocols, and we're trying to manage the huge crowds that we're seeing because the county system is one of the only local systems that's fully open.
You know, Brian, that's so interesting, because that's why we put the reopening and closing with this question, because we know that every community is different. Every state is different right now. Yes, we're seeing the surges, but you have to deal with both ends of the spectrum. So thank you very much. Let's move it to Michael. Michael.
Well, for us in Carmel, what we realized as our Indiana went into our shutdown and now starting to reopen, and we're almost all the way to reopen, but have sort of hit pause. But the first thing we very much noticed is the public really came to appreciate our parks and open spaces. Our trail usage throughout the park system has been tremendous. I mean, some of our trails are like 2 times heavier traffic this year compared to last year. And what we were already witnessing is increased usage of our trails. So people realize that, hey, when we can't be inside, even on the colder months in the Midwest, they were getting out and using our parks and really reappreciating what we have to offer within our park system. Also for us, making sure that we help people remain connected. And initially when we were in a shutdown mode, we went to virtual programming and really focused on fitness and wellness, making sure that people are staying active at first safely at home. Also working with people with disabilities. We have a very large adaptive program, making sure we stay connected with our participants and people with disabilities to ensure that they're not forgotten during this difficult time. Kind of like Brian said, we also very much take the approach that everything that we can legally do, we're trying to do. And for us, it's really important because we're a high cost recovery agency. And when we're closed, we don't have revenue coming in to provide any of the services we're providing. So, you know, making sure that we can, within the confines and safety measures that we can put in place, keeping our community center open at reduced capacity, but ensuring people can use that fitness center and be able to stay active. You know, our water park, again, revenue generation, to ensure that we can continue to employ people within the community, and especially the youth during the summer. And then our summer camps, you know, put in the protocols implemented by the CDC or recommended by the CDC, but making sure that those families that do need childcare to be able to go back to work can feel comfortable knowing that their children are in a safe outside and staying active, and we've had tremendous reviews from all of that. But you know, really all the services we've been able to provide, we've had great appreciation from the public, and it really made me, you know, recognize how much our community cares and needs parks.
Well, and Michael, I'll just say for you, I've met your staff. I've met, all delineations of levels within your system, but this does not surprise me that you have taken everything in account. All people need parks, and you have definitely made sure that that has happened. So congratulations. I know it's been very difficult with budget constraints. So great job. Pamela, can't wait to hear from the East. Tell us about Connecticut and
Well,
what's
first of
going
all,
on.
Anne Marie and Jody, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show. This is pretty darn exciting, and looking forward to seeing the future episodes as well. And also to Game Time and Playcore for sponsoring. It's pretty awesome that you got them on board as well. Darien, right next to the hub of New York City, right? So that began the whole scare in the pandemic, and boy, the rapidly changing environment that we had to deal with, from just trying to pre-plan and then all of a sudden hit, and then the state closed down, and the amount of, everything we had closed. And then of course, as things started to change, we started to make decisions. Everybody looking for guidance, right? CDC, someone give us some guidance, the poor health departments. And, we made our way to start reopening. And today, everything's open. Our playgrounds, our courts, our beaches, our parks, everything. We have flattened the curve here in Connecticut, which is really good. But we're also being very safety-minded, because we have to be mindful that it doesn't come back. So our biggest challenge right now is that our beaches and parks are, as Brian and Mike said, they're the busiest they've ever been. I would say double the use. Now our beaches right now, is the biggest concern is that everybody's home still, and yet public parks, right? We have public parks are open to everyone. That's the most exciting thing. The challenge we're dealing with now is overcapacity. And so there's many coastal neighboring communities that are now closing access and just having it for residents, which is so difficult. And today we had to make the decision to follow that, because we're still concerned about the safety of our community. So we have absolutely, the parks and the beaches are most essential to people, because they need to get out and they need to be in a safe environment, which those provide.
Well, and again, Pam, I want to compliment you. I went back and I was actually on one of your first Zooms with the National Leadership Development Network, and you were on the forefront. You did it, you got out there, and you helped so many departments. It was great to see the questions coming in, and thanks again for being on top of the issue over 3 months ago. We needed you, and you did it. Thank you. Also, let's move into question number 2. Question number 2, in facing challenges in your 2020-2021 budgets, we know that balancing staff needs is going to be very challenging in the appropriations to make sure that you're offering quality service to your community. The second part of this question will be dealing with your capital improvement plans. Will they be adjusted, or will they be moving forward? Let's go ahead and start with you, Michael. We're going to start with the staffing question first, and then go into the capital improvement.
Shoot, the capital improvement one's the easier of the two for me.
Yes, it is.
For the staffing component, as I alluded to in my initial response, Carmel Parks and Recreation is a high-cost recovery agency. Over 85% or nearly 85% of our revenues that we generate for our budget are self-generated. And we have a roughly $15 million budget. So for us, I'm not as concerned about the tax dollars that are coming in to support our park operations and the natural resources that we provide. It's more so those revenue generating functions that we provide, our core services really, that give me the most concern. Our community center, for example, it's been self-sufficient since the 3rd year of operation, since 2010. But we've had to really clamp down. Right now, we only are offering our fitness components there. We aren't able to have the gymnasium open for basketball or pickleball or other types of sports like that. So it's really reduced the amount of people that can come in and use the facility, and therefore pay to use the facility. Likewise, for our water park, under Indiana currently, we can only be at 50% capacity. The right decision to do, and we're actually, we're half of half already, just because our water park is large enough and it feels uncomfortable when it is busy. But, because of that, we're finding that there's only been a couple of days this summer since we opened on June 14th when we could, that we've actually hit capacity. And again, those revenue not coming in when we don't have the day passes coming in are the things that are most concerning to us and will affect us the most. And our summer camps, the same deal. That's one of the areas where we really are able to generate revenue. And usually we serve 780 kids a day. We're down to, based on our protocols, we can only serve 300 kids a day. And we've yet this summer to meet capacity. And usually we're sold out for almost every week during the summer. So that lack of revenue has meant that we haven't been able to hire as many part-time staff to staff our areas. When we closed down, because we didn't have the revenue coming in, we had to furlough 471 employees. Now, fortunately, all of our full-time employees are back. Many of our part-time employees are back, but not all of them because, again, we're not at full capacity. So my biggest concern is making sure that the economy rebounds and safely rebounds, so people feel comfortable coming into our revenue generating facilities, so that we can get closer to normal operations and have our staff. From a capital side, we're in pretty good shape. One of our funding bodies, the Clay Township, just recently passed a number of bonds. So we have 6 major capital projects going on in our parks. Some additional ones that indirectly impact us to the tune of $30 million. So for the next several years, our capital budget's in pretty good shape. Even some of our other funding sources, impact fees from new development, right now that's continued pretty strongly in Carmel. But if that economy doesn't rebound, it's certainly going to impact us. So I'm not so concerned about like next year, but 2022, 2023 are the years that I'm more concerned about.
I'm glad you made that point, because I think, again, we're very focused on right now. We're very focused within just getting through 2020 and looking at 2021. But I believe you're right. I think we're going to see it and we're going to feel it through 2022. But you know what? Again, Michael, this is very interesting with your department, with the recovery cost with your P&Ls, everything that's going on. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes out in the future of our recovery models, because I think this is rewriting the books a little bit. So we will see what happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to Pam. Pam.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I'm very concerned about the next couple of years as well when it comes to capital. When it comes to staff, I'll just start with the staffing. We were really very fortunate here in Darien. We did not have to furlough anyone. We are all back together actually in town hall. We were working from home for quite a while. And the town hall is still closed. It's not open to the public, only by appointment, but we're all here working. And it's going great. We were just very, very fortunate for that. So yes, the revenue is just not anywhere near it was. We've lost an incredible amount. All our spring programming, I want to say it was at least, if we're a small community, at least $50,000 we lost there. And, we're continuing to bring in revenue in certain ways, like our kayak racks and our, because it's so busy at the beaches, everybody's getting out. So we're still bringing in our beach sticker money, $350,000, which was a huge increase from the years before, because everyone wanted their beach sticker to get to the beach. So there are certain areas where we're still doing all right, but certainly we can't recover the revenue that we've lost. And we certainly are putting other things in place, like hiring park monitors that we've never had before. So these beach monitors are going out and making sure that there's still physical distancing on the beach so that we don't have to close. And they're working 7 days a week.
Wow.
And our town loves it because they're their eyes and ears of the town. And so we get reports every single morning about what's going on and how the beaches were. And so it's phenomenal, real good thing that came out of it. As for capital, we took a hit. We had 3 or 4 deferred. I think we're going to do fine. I was willing to defer all of them if it would help budget, because it was such a crunch that was going on. with the finances and the budget. So, we're doing fine, and next year we'll pick up with some of those, deferred capital improvement plans. And we were working on 2 major beach projects that got put on hold. So we're hoping that a couple years down the road, we can revisit those.
Pam, it's very interesting you being with beaches and trying to monitor all that. Were you closed and then reopened? Have you closed again, or are you contemplating any of that?
Our parks and beaches only closed to vehicle access at one point. So people could still get into the beaches and walk the beaches. Our first selectman was, she was such a huge proponent of our parks and beaches that it killed her to even do that. So then only for a limited time, then we opened up to everybody, all vehicles, everything. And we've been monitoring it since.
Okay, because again, that's an aspect that even if you don't have that within your departments, to our audience, it's very interesting to hear how they're monitoring and actually administering the beaches in this country. So very interesting challenge. Pam, thank you very much. Brian?
Well, I'll just say, Pam, I sure appreciate your beach challenge. If anybody was watching the news on the West Coast over the 4th of July, Orange County and LA County temporarily closed their beaches. And you could from anywhere you look, see the traffic coming down to San Diego County, right, to visit our open beaches. And for people that don't have beaches, I think it's probably well known, they are by far the most intense use in park systems that have beaches. And so that's going to continue to be a challenge for us. But getting to your question, Jody, about the staffing, the county made a decision right at the very beginning that we were not going to furlough or let anybody go as a result of this. And that wasn't without controversy, because some constituents in the community would rather see their special program continue, even if that means letting staff and other divisions go. But the county is very committed to its workforce, and the county is very fiscally conservative. So we have the fund balance for a rainy day, which we're facing right now, to do that. It has not been without its challenges. We are not filling any vacancies. And as a result of that, because of the increased oversight required by the health protocol monitoring, we've actually pulled in staff from some other departments that are not currently open to the public, such as libraries or departments that operate indoor facilities, right? So that's been a great opportunity for us to keep those people working and also to serve our customers. I think it's really interesting, and I don't know if this is by design, but your 3 guests sort of represent different entities in terms of park services. You've got a city, you've got a county, you've got a special district, right? And the revenue and funding mix is going to be different for each of them based on the type of entity that they are. I very much relate to what Michael talked about in terms of the revenue hit. For us in the county, our biggest revenue service area is campgrounds. And in the spring, we're packed, so system-wide, I mean, imagine, we've got about 1,000 campsites that are fully occupied, right, for, 9 months out of the year, and the other 3 at 80%, right? And so it's a huge revenue hit when we were forced to close those. And then the reopening was at first just every other campsite, so only 50% capacity. And so that's been the biggest revenue hit for us. But we have essentially struck a deal with our county board and the folks that manage the treasury that we will make that up over time. And that's what has enabled us to basically borrow against our future to not have to let anybody go on the operating side. And so I'm fully confident we will recover that revenue in a period of 2 to 3 years, assuming that we can get fully reopened with some of our other revenue streams in the next couple months. Campgrounds are now, under the current health order, back to fully reopened, right? So it was only about a 2-month hit we took on the full closure there. With respect to our capital, it's such a good question, because, anytime you kind of stop the build out or major renovations of your park system, you're losing time, right? And the county's capital plan is $2.5 billion. So we have a lot of projects that are either full or partially funded. And we received direction from our CAO in presenting the budget this year to identify a portion of those projects for pause, meaning we would not continue, even though they're fully funded. Just waiting to see what would happen with the economy and where the county might need to redirect some funding. And when that was presented to the board, fortunately for us, our board of supervisors is very strongly in support of Parks and Recreation. They made a policy decision to not pause those projects. And so we are, for the most part, moving straight ahead with our capital plan. And we actually had, I want to say $40-something million added above and beyond what we were recommending be new funding for the plan. So that number is just going up, very fortunate. I anticipate this year, we will be throughout the year examining the county's overall budget, to determine for the remaining projects that have been put on pause, if the financial forecast is good enough that we can take them off pause and continue with the next phase, whatever that is, right? Construction or phase 2. And so, our capital program is one of the things that I enjoy most, and then our communities recognize most. So we're very fortunate to be able to keep it moving despite the current challenges.
Well, Brian, I'm glad to hear this because, again, all of you have been alluding to your capital projects and they're still on the board. But, Brian, to hear in your large urban area that value is so high to make sure that those services, but that infrastructure is going to be there for the future. When we come out of this, you're going to need even more than ever. I think people are hungry now and they're coming to our parks, but can you imagine when there's a time that we can go anytime back to the parks? Oh my gosh, I think we're going to be even more inundated because people have been exposed back to parks. If they haven't been there in a while, they're now seeing them as, wow, where have I been if I haven't been there in a while? And why haven't I been there? And then they might even be seeing a brand new park that they've never been to or even experience a trail. So I'm really glad to hear this because sometimes in urban areas, you feel like they're going to start pulling back. And I know that is happening in some areas, but boy, that's a glimpse of hope. Thank you so much for sharing that because that's exciting. Did not know that, Brian. Thank you. One thing I want to say, one thing I'm seeing, and you all may be reading, is about the rise of the citizens asking their councils, asking their commissions, please keep parks intact. Please keep them out there. Just in Lafayette, Louisiana, they started talking about cutting that department 52% and losing 37 positions in the last couple of days. I got to be honest with you. The public has risen up because they were going to close centers. I know it's a hard call for our public officials. We know that, but the service is essential. You are giving people an outlet and a place to go when sometimes nothing else is available. So again, great job, panelists. I want to move into a really exciting, interactive area, and I'm going to turn it over to Anne-Marie. It is time for poll questions. This seems to be one of the most popular parts of the show, besides our panelists' answers and responses. Anne-Marie.
It is time for poll questions. And as we mentioned, we have questions for you and our audience as well. So we want to understand your thoughts on 2 questions today. So I'm going to bring the first one up. And you should be able to see that and click on the answer that fits best. And don't forget to ask your questions for later. We're getting some good questions already on the Q&A, so don't forget that part. What we'd like to know today is, what would you estimate the increase in your park usership to be in light of COVID-19? Is it up to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75% increase, or more than a 75% increase. We keep hearing about the increase in park and rec usage, and certainly this type of information is critical for helping the president to understand the importance of parks and funding land and water conservation. So let's see, we'll give everybody just about 5 more seconds here to answer that one. See a couple more questions or answers coming in. Great, and let's go ahead and share that with you all. So this is really great. Look at that, Jody. 51 to 75% is the most popular by far. 26 to 50% second. So that's really fabulous news to think that, way more than half of you have seen between a 26 and 75% increase in your park usage.
Well, it's fabulous because really it's just, again, what our guests and panelists have been talking about is they're seeing the increase. But that's not only it. Again, the dedication of the park officials, dedication of the field staff. They're keeping them open. They're keeping them clean. That is a huge job at this time. But the public will come out of all this.
Absolutely.
Next question.
Yep, so there's a second part to our question today, and we'll go ahead and launch that one now. We'd love to understand, of the current visitors to your parks, and we know this is just an estimate, but would you estimate the majority to be the same people who've used the parks prior, or are you seeing a lot of new users? Again, it's kind of interesting to be able to understand that dynamic, and that's why we're so excited to have so many of you in the audience today that are in Parks and Recreation that can share these thoughts with us and share what you're seeing in your parks with us as well. So we'll give you just a couple more seconds on that one. I see a few people still voting. We want to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to vote. And let's go ahead and share that one. And I guess it's no surprise, a little bit more toward the new users, the same people. So really, really exciting news, and great to see that that's happening across the country and across the world. I know we have a couple of international viewers and some folks from Canada and Mexico. So not just limited to the United States, it's happening all over the world, and that should be no surprise. All
Absolutely.
right, Jody, let's take it back to you. I think we have another question for our panel.
We sure do. And this one, we always talk about partnerships. So I'm going to talk about collaborative partnerships. What are the key collaborative partnerships that have made and paid positive dividends over the last 4 months for your department in offering your services? But not only that, what are the future partnerships that you have now been exposed to, that you want to reinstate within your system down the road that we might have never even thought of? But again, I think it needs to come from you. What are you looking at? Help our colleagues out there. So again, currently, what has helped you over the last 4 months that has really brought you into focus? And then second of all, what are the future collaborative partnerships that need to be there? And let's go ahead, and Pam, let's start with you.
Well, I want to start by saying I'm so fortunate to be working for the town of Darien. It is one of the most generous towns. There are so many generous groups, nonprofit groups that are always looking to implement something, donate towards something, help one of the town projects. So that's really been something I've noticed in the years I've been here. But over the past 4 months, one of those particular groups called Corbin Cares wanted to put some free exercise classes together because people were hurting. People were out of work and restaurants were closed down. And so we joined hands with them and we opened up our park, and we're still doing free exercise classes each week. On Wednesdays, Saturdays, we have over 85 people that are participating in, say, a yoga class or a boot camp class. And so that's just been phenomenal. And from that, now we are joining hands to do free movie nights, drive-in movies at the beaches. And it goes along with the same thing I was telling. I mean, to collaborate with these groups is just it's like none other. They are phenomenal. We have a Darien Foundation, Darien Athletic Foundation. We have the Nature Center, the Arts Center, Corbin Cares, the Green Team. They're phenomenal. We're very, very lucky.
Well, and also, again, being creative, you know, that people are so open to be together. You know, in another meeting, another setting, you never know if this type of exuberation of collaboration would have happened. Yeah, you would have worked together, but look how you're looking at things so different now. It's wonderful. Let's go ahead and move to Brian. Brian?
Well, Jody, I'll start just by giving a shout out to all of our partner conservancies in the county. A lot of people don't realize San Diego County is the most biologically diverse county in the country, a wildlife biology hotspot. And it's because it's so large, you know, we're roughly the size of your state, Pam, and there's a lot of open space that has to be managed. And our staff that typically does that has been sort of redirected in recent months to managing the public health emergency and the monitoring and the protocols that go with trying to reopen places that require more staff. And so the conservancies and our volunteer base have really stepped in to help manage those open space lands. And that's been fantastic. You know, I see another key partnership moving forward is our partnership with the business community. And in fact, next week, our board in San Diego will consider, and I anticipate will approve, a new measure and initiative that will allow businesses in San Diego County to set up and operate in the parks. And so anybody that has been closed down by the health order that operates a brick and mortar indoor operation may now reserve a park space through a streamlined program without paying a fee and operate in a park. And so you're going to see places of worship coming in and holding services in the parks. You know, we do a lot of fitness in the park already, but now all the gyms are going to bring their equipment into the park and set up. Restaurants will set up in the park. I don't know what else we'll see. We're a little bit nervous, actually. And then getting back to the revenue again, the fee waiver is like, hey, you know, I'm going to miss some of that revenue. But I think that that's a great way to show, you know what, we understand businesses are hurting too. It's not just families and individuals and, you know, people that have jobs, right, for these businesses need a place, you know, to provide their service. And so I'm excited about that. And then lastly, I spoke a little bit to this earlier, but we talk a lot about the public-private partnerships. I think there's still a place for public-public partnerships. And that's been a learning lesson for us in the county during the last few months, because we're the county. We have our own philosophy. There's 18 cities in the county. They have their own philosophies. State Parks also operates within the county. We actually have a national park in San Diego as well. And so, you know, how are we as public park providers collaborating and trying our best, despite working for different political boards, to convey a common message and show some alignment? It's been a struggle for us because the county, as I mentioned, has decided to go all the way to the top end of what we can legally do. Many of the cities said, no, we're not going to do that, and actually became quite frustrated with the county because by opening, we were putting a lot of pressure on them to reopen, and their citizens, right? And the cities are saying, hey, the county's open, why aren't you? And it just sort of reaffirmed the need for me, as we have our regular calls with the city and state directors, to really be sharing information and collaborating on best practices and trying to remember, you know, it's not just about representing our agencies, but it's about representing the field as well. So,
you know, Brian, I'm glad you commented on that, because I worked for 32 years for a city-county intergovernmental agency. So I lived both lives of city and county. And I can tell you, I really identify with this because we had that here in Missouri. And I think what's key about this is you have to be sensitive, because once you enact an opening, then you're going to have people on the other side. Why can't we open? especially when you have other incorporated areas within your county system. That's one reason, again, we have a very diverse group of panelists on every show, because we have every size and shape, but we also have so much variety and diversity of agencies of how you're operating. But I really appreciate your comments on that from being a past director in those shoes. So again, I'm amazed at what you're accomplishing right now and what you are as far as opening. Michael, let's finish this question up with you.
Well, you know, I'm going to stay on the same theme that Brian was talking about with public partnerships, and Jody being in a joint agency. In your case, city county. For me, it's a city and township. But for me, especially the last 4 months and the situation we faced with COVID-19, it really allowed me to better develop those relationships with, especially my counterparts in the city. We've always sort of been the stepchild. I mean, everyone's very proud of the parks, but no one really understands us in city government. Mm-hmm. And basically, our mayor implemented actually for a while, it was a daily meeting of all the city department heads, and I was included in that with parks. And it really allowed all of us to better understand what each of the other departments were doing, whether it was the fire department and police department or engineering and community services. It really allowed us to better appreciate what each other were doing, to understand the challenges that we're facing, not only during COVID, but in general. And I think it's opened up a number of avenues where we can now work more cooperatively. It's not that we were necessarily adversarial before, but we just didn't understand each other. And you know, this very unfortunate pandemic has provided us some opportunities to really better work together and play on the same team for the residents that we serve. Likewise, through this ordeal, we've also been able to develop relationships with closer relationships with the public library, which is a separate political subdivision, with our Performing Arts Center, which is a world-class facility, you know, with the school district, which we're already very closely connected, but with additional representation from the school district, and really better understand how we can partner and work together to serve the residents that you know, share the same jurisdictions with our areas. So that's been the positive, both during the sort of shutdown and as we're starting to reopening. And I think those lay the groundwork for us to have a very successful, even more successful future working with our public partners. And then that will only allow us to further work with, you know, not-for-profit organizations, hopefully build our foundation and other entities in the future too. But the last 4 months has really been about strengthening those relationships we have with our other public entities within the community.
Well, and you want your, it will help any of your weak links. We know that, because that communication is number one. You've all alluded to it. But again, I compliment you on making sure of not only using and making sure you are doing your job to communicate well with your partners, but also the future is bright, because I really believe it has called all of us up to the moment to re-examine ourselves inside and out. How are we working internally, but how are we working externally? So again, I compliment you all. Okay, now this is the really fun part. Anne Marie, I'm gonna transition over to you, because this is what a lot of us have been waiting for during this show. Go right ahead, Anne Marie.
This is a really fun part. We mentioned in the intro that we were going to recognize some additional people who are going above and beyond to deliver the park experiences that are just so valuable right now to communities and families. So we've asked each of our panelists to help in that regard and recognize a person or people in their department for making a difference. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to share my screen with you here. All right, very good. So we have this great little segment called Good News in Parks about great people. And this is really where it comes down to some great people. Thanks to Playcore and Game Time for sponsoring this segment. Much appreciated. And without further ado, let's go ahead and recognize some great folks. All right, Brian.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be able to recognize one of our best and brightest, Jessica Sissel, Philadelphia born and bred, brings a little bit the East Coast to San Diego. She is a manager for our Central Coast region. During the last few months, she's also had to step into an elevated role as the Chief of Park Operations. And Jessica and her team have found themselves sort of right in the mix of what I talked about earlier, which is the tension between whether we should be open or not. And so many a time in the last few months, Jessica has had to respond to a mayor of a city or a city manager who says, hey, please don't open your park system. You're putting pressure on us. And she's the person that says, sorry, we're going to open, right? And she's had to manage that, ensuring that all of our protocols are in place because there's a watchful eye on the county. The media's been very interested. You know, we're talking mostly with park people, but trust me, there are a few folks probably everywhere who aren't outdoor enthusiasts, who haven't quite yet come to a spot in life where they recognize and embrace all the benefits of parks the same as we do, and they don't want parks to be open. And Jessica's been at the forefront of explaining why we think park services are so essential now, and managing those interjurisdictional tensions and keeping her team, you know, uplifted and realizing that they're doing a great thing for San Diego County residents and visitors, because it's huge tourist season as well. And I just want to say thanks. Way to go, Jessica. I hope you're watching from somewhere. And thank you for the opportunity.
That's great. Thank you from all of us at Good News in Parks, Jessica, for everything that you're doing out there in San Diego Parks and Recreation. All right, Pam.
Well, before I dive into Jamie Gore, I did want to make sure that my office staff knows that they are absolutely incredible and they worked through this pandemic like you wouldn't believe. I am very fortunate. I also want to give a shout out to my first selectman and our town administrator, and especially our chair of Park and Recreation Commission. The amount of hours that's been put in over the last 4 months, I mean, 7 days a week, on weekends, at night. And I would be swimming alone if I didn't have them. Jamie Gore, she's a new position the last couple of years. She came up from Florida. She just comes with a dedication, and she is fun, and she is committed to her job, and she goes out into Darien, and she's been collaborating with different groups, and she's really put us right in the forefront of Parks and Recreation. She's worked on social media, which we didn't have in the past. Now we're all over social media. She always just gives the extra step, and I love the fact that she's always willing. I can rely on her in a heartbeat, and she's been thrown into a different role as well, as Brian said, is that we've had some challenging staffing issues, and she's right there on call with me. I can call her, I can text her, she's right there for me, and she has a very, very bright future in Parks and Recreation.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie, again, from all of us as well. And last but certainly not least, Michael.
Anne-Marie, thank you so much. And kind of like Pam said, it was really hard for me to focus on one person, and I have to give a shout out to our Parks and Natural Resources team. With the increased volume of visitors we've had in our parks, especially when the state was largely shut down, but parks were open, they did a phenomenal job of keeping our parks clean, safe, and inviting places for the public, and really represented the best of Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation. So too often they're the people in the backgrounds that don't ever get any recognition. So I want to make sure that our PNR team really understands how much I appreciate everything they did. But when I had to pick one person, Brittany Ignis, our fitness program supervisor at our Monon Community Center, she has just been tremendous, especially as we were going through our shutdown and had to close the community center for nearly 10 weeks. And one of the things that she did, I mean, she is such a positive energy. She, you know, exemplifies the type of employees that we want to have, the customer service, the focus on others, and she just exemplifies that. And when we did have to go to the shutdown, she was at the forefront of how can we make sure that we continue to serve our customers at the community center, especially those that need a fitness regimen. So she developed online programs to make sure that we could reach out. We went to a free platform, so whether or not you are a member of the Monon Community Center or not, you are able to at least get some fitness opportunities through Carmel Parks and Recreation. During the 10 weeks, she helped facilitate 293 virtual fitness programs. The vast majority of them she led herself, but she also incorporated some of our other program instructors. Throughout that difficult time when our facility was closed, she was just phenomenal, and she does this before, after, and during, obviously, the closure. She's always great at giving nice little notes to people, whether it's our patrons and fitness participants, or the co-workers, or even myself. I received several really nice notes from Brittany as we were trying to determine what we were going to do with staff. We were able to keep our staff on for a month before we ultimately had to furlough some of them. But she was real appreciative of the efforts we did to keep staff as long as possible when all the other fitness instructors were being laid off much quicker than we did. And so that positive energy, and now that we're reopened, she helped us develop the protocols to ensure that our group fitness classes are safe. She's always welcoming our visitors to the community center, making sure they feel comfortable, taking suggestions and recommendations to provide the most welcoming atmosphere possible. So thank you so much, Brittany, for everything you've done. You know, great job, and so glad to have you on our team.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you, Brittany, from all of us. And those look like some pretty fun fitness classes there too, from those videos that we see. So that's absolutely awesome. So it's the time of the show now where we like to invite some audience questions, and we have had some really good ones here. So I don't think we're going to have a chance to get to all of them, but we will get to as many as we can. So without further ado, has anyone had any luck or avenues to look for funding? With us having to close so many programs that are revenue generators, our budgets are hit hard. So I know some of you covered that in the budget question, but if you have any additional thoughts on that.
Well, for us, we've been very fortunate that we've actually had during both before and during this situation, our township has come to us and looked at opportunities about how can we expand our parks and recreation opportunities and upgrade our facilities and provide more opportunities for people to use our parks. So, you know, they've provided and come up with other funding strategies to ensure that they can help us, like create a bridge that connects us to our next community over the White River, and looking for other opportunities like that. Likewise, the city has been very helpful in trying to ensure that we're able to continue to build upon the park system we have. So right now, the successes have been on the capital side, not so much on the operations side, but you know, that capital side to ensure that we have the resources, the facilities, the parks to continue to serve the public in a greater capacity as they're learning to reappreciate parks. It's so important to us.
Yeah, Pam.
Yeah, I would say, you know, really look at your ability to collaborate with other groups. You know, for instance, we don't have to incur the same costs that we would with all these different movie nights we're looking to do, because we collaborated with a group that's more than willing to share the expense. So I would really encourage that. I think that's one of the highlights of coming out through one of this pandemic that we're living through, is to reach out to your neighbors and your nonprofits that are more than willing to help.
Great.
I'll share a couple thoughts from San Diego County. You know, I think, you know, the first one, I will speak maybe briefly to the issue of social equity, because here in the county, it's prime season. The demand is so high for our services and for our park areas that we could gouge, you know, the constituency. We could raise prices and we would still be full. And we could generate probably enough revenue to offset the revenue that we've lost. But we're not doing that because this is a time when many people that we serve are hurting, right? Their income is down. And that's why we've looked to sort of long-term, funding programs with our treasury to just be able to kind of withstand this point in time and recover that over maybe a period of years. The other thing, that I would say is, for us, we've been very diligent in how we're identifying the additional costs we are incurring as a result of the public health pandemic, because those costs are recoverable through CARES Act funding. And so we will hopefully recover a large portion through that funding.
It's great. It's great. Love this question. What practical ideas can the panelists share for helping our viewers nurture resiliency and facilitate change with their teams in such a volatile time?
I'll take that one first, I guess. I thank you for whoever asked this question, because it gives me a chance to just kind of put something out before our viewers that I'm curious if it's happening anywhere else. California is a politically volatile state. And it's just, there are people on all sides. And one of the things that we're trying to develop in our agency is a resiliency and an attitude that helps unify amongst our customers. And so one of the challenges we're having now is with respect to the protocols for the public health order, what happens in the parks. And so the requirements are you have to have a mask with you, or a facial covering, I should say. But if you're maintaining 6 feet of social distance, you don't have to wear it. Many people come into the parks, and going back to the founding of our nation, parks are areas of, what's the word? Public conversation, right? And so we're experiencing customers trying to enforce other customers to do things that they're not required to do. Right? And it's not something we're used to. Usually everybody comes and has a great time. Now somebody is saying, hey, put on your facial covering. Someone's saying, I don't have to. Staff, can you come in here and kind of arbitrate this? And so how do we train our staff to seize those opportunities, to do the right thing, to enforce what we have to enforce, but to give everybody in that situation a good customer experience and try to build unity instead of dissent? I don't have an answer to it, but it's definitely a challenge that we're seeing out there in the field.
Yeah, I agree. Michael or Pam, you want to answer the question or build on Brian's comment?
Well, with building resiliency in staff, for us, I think the key has been maintaining and enhancing our communication with our team. One of the things that I think almost every organization hears is their team members, especially the lower you get into the organization, wanting more and more communication and being involved in the decisions. And that's one of the things that, especially in this time, it's really critical for us to be transparent in the decisions we're making and why we're making those decisions. Even when we had a good portion of our staff on furlough, making sure that we still had those means to communicate with them. And then as we developed our reopening plans, we developed a very extensive plan. We tried to incorporate some of our staff from different divisions. Now, at the time when we were developing it, it was predominantly only management staff that was left, so we couldn't go quite as deep as we would always like to do, but made sure that we developed that. We worked with outside consultants and medical doctors to ensure our plans were fine, but then we communicated and shared that plan and let not only our staff, but our community see and read and understand the safety protocols that we're putting in place to ensure that, our staff, the people that we serve, when they come into contact with us and their families by extension, are all safe. And keeping those lines of communication open have just been absolutely critical for us. Have we always been perfect at it? No, it's been such a fast moving pace. But I think by and large, our staff has really appreciated our additional efforts to ensure that they know what's going on, and that if they have concerns, they have the ability to share those with us and give the recommendations so that they can be comfortable at work and so that we can comfortably serve the public.
And I'll just add to that, I completely agree. Communication is key, and we did the same thing. We stayed weekly, if not twice a week, we would stay in communication by way of Zoom or some social virtual platform. But even our like park crew, you know, they were cut in half. You know, think about the challenges of all the acres of land that they had to manage. And, you know, they kept the parks clean and safe, you know, all safe. And I mean, every day they went out and worked hard, and just within what was happening to everybody in terms of wearing masks. They're all back together now, but just kudos to having to get out there every day and make sure that our parks and beaches still looked pristine and wonderful, that everyone could enjoy them. So it was communication with all staff around the board.
Great. I think we probably have time for one more, and I absolutely love this one too, just because the show is called Good News. So here's another chance to share some great news. What has been the most difficult challenge, and what has been your most surprising success?
The most difficult challenge for me was, I've always been about building park systems and creating and growing park systems and community centers. So for the very first time, I faced a situation where based on our revenues, our incoming revenue disappearing overnight, making the decision of having to furlough employees, nearly 500 employees. And that was the most painful thing I've ever had to experience. Now, I had the firm belief that it was a temporary situation. We were very fortunate because of the reserves we built up that we were able to keep our employees for the first 4 weeks, maybe the first month. We kept them on staff even though we had no revenue coming in, which allowed us to have enough time for the CARES Act and the additional supplemental unemployment insurance to kick in, so that we knew that almost all of our employees were making at least as much on unemployment as they were by working for us. So we felt very, very I won't say at ease, but at least a little bit of relief knowing that even though we had to do the furloughs, that if the government paid the way they were supposed to, they should be in relatively healthy financial situation until we could bring them back on board. So that was the most grueling thing that we've and my team faced in the 4 months. For me, just the commitment of my staff is the really feel-good story of this time. You know, as Pam was talking about the efforts that her team made in keeping the beaches and parks open, witnessed the same thing, and just the commitment and pride that the entire Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation team has in serving our public and doing it at the highest levels possible. Just makes me so incredibly proud to lead a tremendous group of individuals that care so much and are so passionate about our profession.
That's great.
I'll take the next. One of the biggest challenges in this department was shutting everything down and sending people home, and watching the days go by and knowing that we were getting behind. And as the town started to open up, we were weeks behind. So the staff finally, when they were able to somewhat come back 50% in the office, was such a huge challenge to try to get all those, you know, in our case, it was beach permits, everybody, but we were weeks and weeks behind, and they put in hours upon hours, bringing things home, getting the work done at home, bringing it back in the office, mailing it out. I mean, they were tremendous. I saw more leadership, and that's sometimes, right, I've heard that too. During chaos and crisis, leaders show up.
That's right.
And success-wise, I would say that quite honestly, that was the success. It was a big puzzle thrown in front of us, and every one of my team members wanted a piece of the puzzle. They wanted to figure it out. They wanted to make it work. And today, I think we're stronger than ever, tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great.
My answer will really just be an extension, I think, of what both Michael and Pam hit on. It was difficult physically to close the park system when the state ordered that the parks and beaches close. But I'll tell you, I think for us, more so than the physical burden of that was the emotional burden of that. Because those of us in my agency fundamentally disagreed with that approach and thought that there should be some outdoor outlet, where our park systems were staying open. And so it was difficult to deal with that. Fortunately, it was really only a short period of time. And I say that the challenge has also been probably the most beautiful thing. And that is, for many years, our profession, we have talked about our parks are essential, right? They're important. They're not niceties, they're necessities. And every once in a while, you need an experience out there, something that happened that just proves it. And this one certainly did. And so we have, I think, a higher appreciation for our park system, our lakes and our beaches and our sports complexes and everything right now than we ever have. And I think we've also learned a few things about how we can do business better in the future. Certainly our teleworking and electronic meeting capabilities have improved. I'm a people person, so I feel a little bit lonely, even though I'm seeing people on screen, but at the same time, it's been nice to get up and have my first meeting in shorts and a t-shirt sometimes. And I've seen my bosses like I've never seen them before, right? So it's all good.
That's awesome. Well, we are just about out of time. Jody, what would you like to add?
Well, one thing, I really want to come back to one thing. We have schools starting in the fall. And I'd just like to know, just a quick snippet from all of you. How do you see yourself maybe interacting with that? Because really, we have school parks here. I know there's a lot of interaction, after school, meal programs, you name it. But how do you see your interaction maybe with your local district coming up in this fall?
For us in Carmel, we manage the before and after school program for our school district. So we're in all 11 elementary schools. Actually had a conversation with one of the assistant superintendents yesterday and to discuss what does our before and after school program look like. So, we're in close communication to understand, how that program might look, what protocols we need to have in place. They actually came out and looked at how we manage camps to assess how they might scale that up for the school system as a whole. So it's been very close, and I mean, their success and being able to maintain the schools and have students and the kids are critical to our success to be able to run the before and after school program. If they ultimately have to or are not able to provide in-class or in-school education, then we're going to look at extending our summer camp program out of school camps so that those parents that do need a place for their kids to go to at least certain times can come to our park facilities and have opportunities to know that they're in safe environments and maybe work with them on their school work as well. So we'll adapt and work closely with the school district as we move forward.
Excellent, Michael. Brian or Pam? Pam.
Well, I was going to say that first of all, it's a great question because we're very unsure how the schools are going to move forward and whether it's going to be e-learning or actually in person. And I think for us, we need to be prepared for that. And we work extremely close with our youth commission. Our youth commission director is right in our office, actually. And I think together we need to be prepared to maybe have a plan for providing more services for the parents that need care for their kids.
Excellent. Brian?
Well, I can think of two things, one of which we've already implemented and one that I think we need to work on. We do a lot of work in the schools with our nature program. Our rangers go into the classrooms and our naturalists, and that's not likely to be happening this fall. And so we've created a virtual nature program that is basically an interactive web thing like this, where our rangers and nature folks just put together this amazing interactive thing, which hits all the same curriculum points that are part of the elementary school curriculum here in California. You know, the animals are going crazy, and it's just, it's like watching the Animal Channel or Nature Network, Nat Geo. It's really amazing, and their personalities really come out. So that's already in place, and I think we can extend that as long as our folks aren't allowed to go into the schools to teach. You know, the other challenge that we haven't quite solved or figured out how we're going to address is we really think that our department can help fill a gap in the middle school and high school ages, because California CIF has declared there won't be any fall sports. And so what are those kids, boy, in particular those seniors who are losing out on their last season of sports, going to be doing? And is there a way that we can fill that gap in our park system through our programs, still compliant, but engage all those folks who would normally be going to practice right after school, right? And what are they going to be doing, and what's their outlet going to be, and how do we fill that gap? And we haven't solved it yet, but we are diligently working on figuring that one out.
Well, but you're thinking, and what's great is you've got it out on the table and you're ready to address it. So that's half the battle. So you're halfway there, my friend. Just finishing up too, I just want to share with you all and the audience, what you're hearing here today is heart. You're hearing about passion, but this is what puts us all together as one family. And it doesn't matter where you travel in this country, you would find directors like this and their staffs on the front line together more than ever. I've seen this across the country, and I'm not just reading it, I'm seeing it. And it's so exciting to see for our field. I think we're getting better and better every day through all this pandemic. And then finally, I just want to say, great leadership, it bonds us, but you have to be present to be a great leader. And you three exemplify that. Listen to your answers today. It's all about the front lines. And you all, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. We needed you. And thank you so much for being here and being there for us all. And Anne-Marie, I'm going to turn it back to you. Thank you.
All right, very good. Well, we just want to tell you a little bit about our next episode. So we have a little bit of a break here. The next one will be on August 13th, again at 1 p.m. We're always at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're titling this one Parks as Essential Services. So you can register at that first link there, as well as see all of the other events that are going on. And because we like to share resources in a lot of different ways, the link there for resources, you can check that out and look at some different research programs and things that may be helpful to you. So we certainly hope to see you on the next show, where as Jody mentioned, we have got some real powerhouses again. Every show, we just seem to get these fantastic people. Thank you, Jody. Rick, Inger, and Allison, we are super excited to have them. So with that, I will just say a toast to everybody that took some time to be on the show with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your good news. Thank you so much to our audience for being here with us. We look forward to seeing you next time, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Thank you.